Hello and welcome to this episode of Kaleidoscope, the podcast. My guest today is Carolyn Sykes. Caroline, you do Chinese medicine and you specialize in menopause. And like I said at the top of this, privately between yourselves, I was reading your post about divine feminine and totally agree with that. But I'm going to pass the podcast over to you as I always do with my guests. And the four questions are, as always, what was life like before the change? What was life like
Mm.
during the change? What was life like after the change? And what does the future hold? And of course, you can talk about whatever aspect of your life and change that you wish to.
Okay. Well, I think my life's had many, many, many changes because when I first read the questions that you sent through, I was thinking about which change I was going to talk about. And I thought, actually, there's just been a series of changes. It's like, I think sometimes when you're on a path of growth, you put yourself in uncomfortable positions on purpose because then you start to get comfortable with this uncomfortable feeling. And then no matter you can't control your journey no matter what you do. So even if you say, I'm on a growth path, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable, you still can't control what's going to be the outcome of that. So I think because I'm on this path where I'm continually pushing myself, there's so much change happening all the time. So there's still continual changes happening. So at the moment, I'm sitting in my brand new premises, which is a big change that happened in my acupuncture and, service offering career. And it came very unexpectedly in January. I saw this place available to rent next to the river, overlooked by the church, and it just felt like an instant yes. So I went for it, and here I am now. So that's been a big change that's happened recently. And also at the same time, our landlord decided to sell the house that we were living in. So I just opened the new premises. And that week I get a call saying, also got to move house now. So we've literally just moved into a new house as well, which I actually love. I prefer the new house, and it's like the area and everything about it. It's an upgrade. So I feel like I'm being put in places where I can then expand again. So there's change happening all the time. And there's these significant changes that have happened throughout my life. So I think I'll tell you a few stories about those. Okay. So when I look
Perfect,
back,
perfect.
my career, it began with horses. So I used to, as a child, I loved horses. As a teenager, I wanted to work with horses. I went to an equine college after my GCSEs, and then I worked in the horse industry. And I worked in horse racing for over a decade. And at the time, I was also very spiritual, very interested in holistic health. And I was learning Reiki, I was performing massage, I was teaching meditation. And it got to a point in the horse racing career that I wanted to transition from horse racing and do my spiritual and healing work more full time. So I guess that was the first change, really, was like stopping the horse, which was the secure income. And I actually, in fact, when I first started working with horse racing, because I was working with horses throughout my life, but then when I went into horse racing, it was very scary for me because the first time I rode a racehorse, it completely galloped off with me and I couldn't stop. And then I found out later that they basically, the more you pull on the reins, the faster they go. So I wasn't equipped for that. And it put me in like quite a traumatic situation straight away. And that sort of like was the framework that I had for every single day getting up to go to work and being afraid that that was going to happen again. But I ended up loving it. And, I learned the techniques and I strengthened in my physical body and I practiced it daily and I became really good at it and I became to love it. So when I wanted to transition away from working there and more into my own business, I had that fear again. But I thought to myself, I've had this fear before and I did it, you know? And so I did it again. And it took a while. So I started working in a well-being center. And I thought, you're a bit naive when you're young and you think it's just going to be like busy straight away. You're going to be successful. You're going to start a new business and you're just going to be a success straight away. But then you learn as you go that you also now have to strengthen yourself in other ways. So I had to learn all about business and I had to strengthen my emotional intelligence and I had to attract clients and then eventually became very full and busy with more like massage and meditation classes. And then I became an acupuncturist. So I was studying acupuncture alongside my own business. And then it came to a point where when I was doing massages on people, it was starting to hurt me. So I decided I need to stop doing massages and move fully into acupuncture. And so I could see that I'd already done this twice before. I'd done it transitioning away from the horses, and I'd done it in order to ride the horses initially. So I had to go through that fear again. And then I eventually became really busy and fully booked with acupuncture. And then I got into the world of coaching. So I was running a thriving acupuncture practice. And then I discovered the world of coaching. And then I started paying a lot of money in the coaching world to be receiving higher level sort of mentorship and, new information and expanding myself in new ways. And then that became the new thing that was very scary to me because I was spending a lot of money and it wasn't initially coming back either. And so it still continues on to this day. I keep doing it. I keep putting myself in those positions because I know the initial bit feels scary, but if you see it through, and then it's like, it's this whole strengthening process that goes on. It's internal and external. It's almost like each one of these decisions puts you into a new identity. And then you have to become the new identity. And you do that by doing it every day and keep walking in those shoes and keep, showing up and not giving up. And then you break through, isn't it?
Very much so. With some of the coaching that I had, that's what I was, when you were talking, I made a note there to say terror barrier was what we'd have called it. So you present as your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your body are all on the same light wavelength, so they're all X's, and then you introduce Y.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start to integrate Y into, so you probably integrate it first of all in your conscious mind because it's
Mm-hmm.
something you've decided logically to do.
Yeah.
Um, but you've got to get it into the subconscious mind before it starts showing up in the body and you start taking the action and feeling comfortable with it. And it's that point you break through what
Right.
in my world in the coaching that I've done is called the terror barrier. Um,
Interesting.
but it is that, and when we teach it, look back at all the other times you've done this and
Mm,
recognize the point at which what changed in your life that showed you
mm,
you could make it to the other side of the terror barrier. Because everything you want is on the other side of fear.
yeah.
So this absolutely, absolutely resonates with me. And it was great that you were able to look back and go, I've done this before. I can do it again.
Yeah.
I have the emotional strength, the emotional intelligence to do this. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Um, so you're now in a place of doing acupuncture and coaching
Yeah.
in your new premises, which, by the way, the views on your Facebook
Mm,
page is Raise Your Gaze.
yes.
Been putting up. I can see why that place said yes to you. I kind of went,
Yeah.
come, have your business in here.
Exactly.
Yes, it does kind of, it makes my soul sing looking at where your new business is. Um, so obviously before the change was horses.
Mhm.
And my daughter's big into horses, so I know all that. That not so much racing was never her thing. Horse
Right.
jumping and trekking and the trek and all those sorts of good
Oh, yeah.
things. That in itself can be scary going from a paid position,
Mm,
self-employed, and you're right, because then you have to learn how to be sales and marketing. It's my
yeah.
biggest struggle. Sales and
Still learning
marketing
that.
and doing your tax returns and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, so what tools, when you hit that terror barrier, what tools for looking back and saying, I've done this before, this at this point, this is where I was able to change things. What tools did you use to help you break through the terror barrier?
Oh, it was God.
Very good.
God is my tool. I mean, when I was working in horse racing, there was a phase, a long phase, where I was just petrified all the time. And I would just like, I'd go to sleep at night and I'd be quite tired from the day's work, and I'd go to sleep quite easily, but then I'd wake up really early and I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep because I'd be so worried about what horse I was going to be riding and if there was going to be an accident. And I'm thinking, looking back, I wonder why I put myself through that, to be honest, but I'm glad I did because it was the most character building and physically building thing I could have done. So at that time, I had an amazing spiritual mentor called Jason Chan, and he taught me the value of daily practices to clear the mind and connect to a higher source and keep your energy flowing. And basically, I would get up early then, instead of lying in bed worrying about the day, I would get up early and start my spiritual practice. And I'd start with a little bit of Qigong, and then I'd sit down and read A Course in Miracles, and then I'd meditate. Yeah. And I just felt divinely protected. And there was actually a passage in the Course in Miracles that said, you think that you need protective clothing, helmets, medicines, you name it, to protect you, to keep you physically safe. But all you need is the love of God. And it just resonated so strongly because we had to wear all this protective clothing and we had to wear the helmets and everything. I'm thinking, like, these are not the things that keep me safe, even though you have to wear them. Like, ultimately, it's God. And I did see quite a lot of people having accidents and things, but it never, ever, ever happened to me. And I do believe I was completely divinely protected. Yeah. So for me, it's like the spiritual plane is the most potent level. There's different levels of our being, and we manifest from different levels. So most human beings just use their physical self, their human life, work really hard, try and make something happen, but possibly burn out in the process. And then some people are very much, mindset is the thing. And it definitely, all of these levels apply for sure. But ultimately, for me, it's the spiritual level. That's where the power of creation is, you know? And that's ultimately the decider of living or dying. And I do a lot of work with fertility. I help a lot of people with their fertility as well as menopause. And so for me, one of the things I always ask my fertility patients is about their faith, because ultimately God is the decider of whether a human being is going to have a life or not us. And I start with the question, what is your faith? Because that way I'll know if they're open to that level of conversation or not. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to trigger anyone, but at the same time, for me, that's the truth.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to know our audiences because if there's not, I would be very spiritual.
Mm.
I would talk about Mother, Father, God,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because of the whole divine feminine thing and believing that uh, the divine feminine was very much written out of
Right.
modern texts and stuff. So I probably will get over it at some stage and just refer to source as God again. But for now, I say Mother, Father, God. But yeah, there
Yeah.
are some people I know that I couldn't have that conversation with at all
No.
because either they're a very church-based religion or they're totally agnostic or
Yeah.
or atheist.
Yeah.
And I take people where I find them. And so if they're not open to that kind of conversation, there's no point in me,
No.
but it's
I do.
still, I hope they give me the same respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so your menopause, sorry, go on ahead. You were going to say something there.
Well, I would just wanted to say about the divine feminine there, because that's been a journey for me as well. So, like, initially, it was very much a relationship with God and Jesus. And back at the time when I was doing all the horse racing, I was in my early 20s. So, I was also very masculine in my being. And what I kind of have come to understand over the years, and luckily not through having a burnout or anything like that, but just through my constant like learning, growth, this evolution pulse that I seem to have, I've been able to attract into my life the most amazing teachers that have always shown me the next step, the next step, the next step. And when I started learning about the divine feminine, I also started healing my own feminine aspects. And that's where life today is so different. And that's why I now bring the divine feminine into the work that I do with menopause, especially womb work, things like this. So it came through my own healing journey, but not because I had like a breakdown, but just because I was inspired by it. And yeah, she came to me when I was ready to receive her, the divine feminine. So
And is that so? Do you work with any one goddess in particular, or do you just call it divine feminine?
I work with multiple goddesses, but very much Mary Magdalene. Yeah.
Hello, sister. I didn't even, there we go. I didn't even realize that when I said that at the top in the wee private bit we were having a chat when I said about Mary Magdalene. I didn't
Yeah.
realize there you go. See, yes, the universe, God, source, the goddesses put together the people who
Yeah.
are meant to be together, don't they? Absolutely. Very good. Oh, that's fabulous. Um, so your Chinese medicine with your menopause, you've now
Mhm.
become a bit of a specialist in that area, I think,
Yeah.
from what I've read and
Yeah.
seen. So, in what way can Chinese medicine help with menopause?
Right. So for me, I was just saying to you off air, isn't it? I'm quite an interesting character because I'm this menopause specialist and I'm so passionate about working with menopause, and yet I haven't been through the menopause. Okay. Now, technically, you could say I'm perimenopausal because I'm 43, but I don't have any symptoms. Okay. And this is down to Chinese medicine. So with Chinese medicine, we're always looking for a root level. So we use a few different analogies to explain what we do. Think of a tree, you've got the roots and the branches. And so from our perspective, we're really interested in the roots and we treat at root level. And then when the body's out of balance, you start to get manifestations which show up as imbalances and symptoms. And so from our perspective, hormones is a symptom or a leaf on the end of the branch, and it's not a cause. Okay. So I've got this whole kind of ethos. It's not your hormones. Hormones aren't the problem. They are an end result indicator of a much deeper problem. And so in Chinese medicine, we peel the layers back, 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 and we look for that root level cause for the actual underlying imbalance. And then we treat that, and then everything changes. It's like changing the blueprint, the manifestation changes. So, yeah, the way we look at it is there'll be certain symptoms which come together as a pattern. So, for some women, it's like hot flushes during the day, which are more like surges of heat, but there's actually no sweat. They might have migraine headaches. They wake up at 3 in the morning and can't get back to sleep. They're very easily angered and frustrated. That is more liver is the root cause organ. So when a person is in front of me telling me all about their symptoms, it sounds to me like a pattern is forming. Whereas to the client, it feels like a lot of these things might not even be related or connected. They might not
Yeah,
even know that it's
yeah.
anything to do with menopause. And so there's that. And then there's like more of a kind of kidney root cause pattern would look more like night sweats, those drenching night sweats that you get. And then like panic attacks and anxiety and feeling really tired and getting sore joints and having black bags under your eyes and things like this. That's more like kidney. And also like
Don't
losing
lift,
hair
don't
and
lift.
stuff like that. So yeah, so there's these five main organs that we look to as the root level, and we treat
Yeah,
that. And each organ in Chinese medicine is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
yeah.
So a bit like the chakras, the chakras relate to different areas of life as well as organs. And so the organs themselves do have a big impact on different levels of our being. And so it's a very holistic view, but it also finds that absolute first domino. And when we change the first domino, the whole picture falls differently. So I've had women come to me with debilitating hot flushes on the point of almost giving up their careers, and they don't have another hot flush again after one treatment. And it's happened before, and I've thought, wow, that's a miracle. I love that that happened, but I can't say that that's going to happen every time. And now it's starting to happen more and more and more. So it's like gathering more evidence that actually, I can't promise you that's going to happen, but I can tell you there's a lot of evidence I have that it can and likely will happen like that for you, type thing.
Very good. Wow. Um, I thankfully now am post-menopausal and don't often suffer any of those. But
Yes.
yeah, still got. But I think we're going to say that's a DNA thing. All my family suffer from. panda
All
eyes.
right.
Um, yes, I do qigong, and
Hmm.
I would take a holistic approach as well. So I work with the chakras,
Hmm.
and I'm always talking to people about. So I do EFT tapping as well, and we're always
Yeah.
saying, these are your kidneys. And when you're tapping
Yeah.
on there, it's sending the signal to your adrenal glands on top of your kidneys that you're safe. So there's that
Yeah.
whole, but it lives in the body. And when we get the stuff in the body right, along with the mindset, that whole person centered
Yeah.
approach, then things will start to change and shift. Um,
Yeah.
that's fabulous that you're having so much success and getting in. And that I think that with EMDR and integrated eye movement and brain spotting, that's where they're coming at it from as well. Let's get to the cornerstone. And if we can
Mm.
take out for them, it's more about trauma. If we can take out the cornerstone, the thing that's holding up the wall, then the whole wall
Yeah.
will crumble. We don't need to
Well,
go,
this is
we
it.
don't need to fix each brick if we can take out the
Because
foundations.
if we keep peeling the layers back, because, like, for example, you go to the doctor and you tell them what your symptoms are, and they just say, oh, it's this. And then they give you a diagnostic label and then they offer you a drug. But they don't keep asking questions. It's like, oh, you've just got this. It's like, okay, but why? Why have I even got that in the first place? And we start peeling it back, back, back. So we could even peel back further than the organ and say, okay, yes, it's the liver, for example, but why is your liver out of balance? Then we're looking more to the life. Okay, what is it about your life that's causing this continual stress, this continual trigger, this continual reaction in your liver? And it is oftentimes trauma. So
Mm,
getting to the trauma is getting to the root cause even
yeah,
deeper. Yeah.
yeah. And that would be one of the reasons I trained in the hypnotherapy for PTSD, because the more people I seen,
Mm.
the more I was realizing that actually trauma lies at the heart of, and I think our diagnosis and definition of trauma is very different now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of people believe it's soldiers and firemen and
Yeah.
ambulance and that kind of thing, and fire service personnel. Um,
Yeah.
but actually, somebody not being there for you in a highly emotional moment when you were a child can
Mm.
cause a developmental trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and we're starting to recognize more and more, and the likes of Fussell Braun Cook in his The Body Keeps the Score would say there
Yeah.
needs to be another, not that he's fond of diagnosis in that sense, but if you're going to do it by the book, then there needs to be another one, which is the childhood developmental trauma, where a child has been rejected or neglected, or and not necessarily abuse, but
No.
just in that moment where they really needed somebody to allow them to feel the big feelings and learn how to process big feelings and guide them through processing those big feelings, they were shut down. And
Yeah.
that means they go through their life shutting down in that scenario every single time. And that's what
Yeah.
causes the trauma. So yes, I would we're on the
Also,
same page, it's just different Chinese
yeah.
Western or but I
Well,
do
I've
love
worked with
Qigong.
so many
Do love
different
Qigong.
mentors in my life as well that are coming at from different angles as well. So one of my amazing mentors is Miranda McPherson. I don't know if you've heard of Miranda. She's a spiritual teacher. She's actually from
The name.
she's from Australia, but she lives in San Francisco. And ultimately, the work that I've been doing with her over the years, she's been my mentor since 2013. And she's like very highly realized and evolved spiritual being, but she's also like a trained psychotherapist and psychologist and everything as well. And the way that she frames her spiritual teaching is very much in the divine feminine, but very much in the now, very much somatic work about releasing these traumas that we're holding in our body that come from the fact that when we're born as a baby, we are 100% vulnerable. And that if we are not, like, if we have a need, so like when we were in the womb, every need was met before we even recognized that there was a need. And then as soon as we came out of the womb, there was a need, and then there was a gap between the need and it being met. And that was a trauma for a baby that didn't know how to fend for itself. It relied on its caregivers 100%. And so if you were lucky enough to have a caring caregiver, there was still a gap between a need and it being fulfilled. And then there's also obviously babies and children that have been through a lot of neglect, which can also be worse traumas. And, so it goes back very far and it can be quite subtle as well. But it's ultimately, as the nervous system was developing, it was developing through all these mini traumas, isn't it?
But even at that, for me, it can go back further.
Mm-hmm.
There's generational trauma.
Oh,
From
yeah.
Northern Ireland, we very much have
Mm.
40 years of conflict, hundreds of years of conflict. Anyway, and that comes down through epigenetics. Our genetics are changed because of these traumas and we do things differently and sometimes it stops with us because we realize that a behavior is not appropriate anymore, or society has changed so much. So one of the things we have to do, we weren't allowed to kick empty tins.
Cans. Yeah.
People back then littered everywhere, and you'd have got a drink can, and you'd
Yeah.
play football with it. We weren't allowed to do
Right.
that because when I was a child, that could have been a ball.
Right.
And you also had to carry a 10p so that if there was any bomb scars or whatever, your buses were later on and you could phone home. So you were never allowed, there was always a 10p in your pocket and you were
Yeah.
not allowed to spend that except to phone home.
Wow.
So unless society has changed, so for me, society has changed enough that, well, everybody has mobile phones, so there's no point. You probably wouldn't find a working phone box anyway. And if you did, 10p wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
Don't imagine. Don't imagine. I doubt if anybody even knows how to. We used to have to know our postcodes, our phone numbers, and how to do a reverse phone call on the phone.
Yeah.
Like when we were tiny,
Mm.
we had to have to do that. So sometimes our society changed. So my
Mm.
daughter doesn't need to know. My daughter
Mm.
wouldn't scan a building looking for the exits, etc., the way my generation would, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but there have been other changes in your epigenetics. So sometimes it goes back further and sometimes it goes back to the womb. So if
Mm.
something happened to mummy when she was pregnant and there was a lot of stress and a lot of trauma, a lot of cortisol, adrenaline, etc., that changes baby.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's getting back to even that root cause. And that's without blaming anybody because
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
happens.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
just does. It's not. My mother didn't plan, I don't think, to have me just as the troubles were erupting in Belfast and having to go through what she had to go through during her pregnancy before she had me. Do you know?
Mm.
That's not, you wouldn't plan for that. Nor would a lot of people understand that that level of stress would actually cause different genetics in the baby because of the cortisol and the adrenaline. So
Yeah.
yes, there's going back not just to baby, but to fetus and to um, the ancestral, the generational things as well.
Yeah.
And does the Chinese medicine, can it change whatever's going on for the generational stuff?
It doesn't talk too much about generational stuff, or not, at least not the Chinese medicine I've been taught and that I practice. But we do, like, whenever we do a brand new consultation with a patient, we do talk about pregnancy, birth, all of that type of stuff as well. Like, if we're talking about menopause, what was your mother's menopause like, and things like this. So we do ask questions that go quite far back, but not so much about generational trauma, not further back than, say, mother, grandmother. But yeah, it's not really a focus of Chinese medicine. It's more like
Yeah.
you know, lifestyle and organs.
And I suppose the thing is, if you're changing the organ now,
Hmm.
the generational stuff isn't maybe quite as important
No, and
from
the
that.
organ can shift quite, because when we work with chi, again, we're working on like a more potent level. So like you might go for a massage, which is lovely at the time and really does settle the nervous system or what have you. But then a few weeks later, the same places feel tight and achy again. Whereas when we're working on the chi level, which is more subtle, it's also more potent, we can get much bigger changes and much longer lasting changes as well. So it's like sometimes it's not even necessary to know all that about the past, but I think it definitely is helpful. And I also think that it's beneficial for the patient to be able to have an opportunity to talk about all these things and really just be listened to. I mean, maybe part of the reason that one session with me is so powerful is the fact that they're listened to for an hour. They don't go to the doctors and get listened to that deeply for
Yeah,
that long, you know?
yeah,
And that's so healing
absolutely.
in itself.
Yeah, very much so.
Mm,
We were taught that in reflexology
mm,
and aromatherapy, that it was the fact that you were giving this person and
mm.
holding the space for them for an hour.
Yeah,
And that was their time, and that was as therapeutic almost as the actual reflexology and the massage. So yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. And it's
yeah,
unfortunate, the doctors, I know some of the doctors would love to spend an
mm,
hour having,
yeah,
but just overwhelmed. We don't have a, I keep saying this, we don't have a health service anymore. We have an ill health service, and it doesn't
yeah,
serve people very well, unfortunately. So
yeah.
what does the future hold?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, as I said that, I looked up and I looked at my window and I saw the Raise Your Gaze logo on my window. So it's like I'm looking up, and as you look up, you lift your gaze and you see more, and you see more potential, and you feel expanded and lifted, and you feel more hope. And so, like for me, I don't even know what the future holds, but I can feel a feeling. Do you know what I mean? And so it feels expansive, and it feels exciting, and it
Good.
feels like, I've manifested quite a lot in my life already. I mean, especially recently, because I manifested the new place that I'm working from now. My partner asked me to marry him, so we've recently got engaged as
Yay,
well.
congratulations.
Thank you. Living in the new house, and for me, the focus is usually on business expansion, growing the business. So definitely more expansion there, having more impact on more people. And so doing more
Lovely.
stuff online, as well as I've got this physical place which people can come to. I also want to grow my online presence as well so that I can reach more people.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, Carolyn, over to our last three questions. And as I said in our email exchange beforehand, um, you can answer one of these or all three of these. For me, that my very, very first podcast, I was caught out because Cuddy Codworth, bless his heart, turned around and went, "What's your favorite book?" And I went, um, uh, because I don't do favorites.
Okay.
I just, it's kind of what I'm reading right now, or
Yeah.
there'll be one that I kind of keep coming back to, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite because there's so many good ones. So that's why I give a choice of three, and you can answer all three or just one, whichever's up to
Oh,
completely up to
I
yourself.
answer them all.
You're going to answer them all. Brilliant. So it's favorite book, favorite phrase, or what would you tell your younger self?
Okay. So, favorite book, I feel it's exactly the same as you. I've got so many books, and I recently moved house and I had to be very ruthless with my book collection. So, I brought a load of old books to sometimes I call it the shop and sometimes I call it the healing temple. So, in the healing temple, I've got a shelf here which is full of old books, which I still love very much, but I'm going to let them go with love, and people can choose a book after their session and take it home with them.
Lovely.
So it's hard to say, but there've been books that have really changed my life. Okay. And so Course in Miracles, most definitely. But I think the book that really changed my life the most was a book called Power versus Force. Do you know that
Okay.
one?
I
By
don't
Dr.
know.
David R. Hawkins. Oh, I mean, like, I can't even do it justice. But what he teaches in his whole series of books, there's about 12 of them actually, is the backbone of everything I do now. And I think ultimately it also gave me like more faith. It helped me to, because he basically talks about the vibratory level of everything in existence and how you use kinesiology. But you don't have to be a trained kinesiologist. You can just test, you can use yourself to test whether something is strong or weak. And if it's weak, it's out of integrity and you stay away from it. And if it's strong, you go with it. And so you can test everything in your life. You can test opportunities, situations, books, people, jobs, any food you're going to eat. You can test everything and you can start following this path of knowing with certainty that everything you're deciding to do and choose next is actually empowering you and not disempowering you. And so that book definitely changed my life. And then going on and reading all of those books is all about healing and, you know, ultimately the different vibratory levels of like the divine as well. And so like you got stuff that vibrates below 200, which is out of integrity, and that 85% of humanity actually live there. And so when we look at the way the world is today, it's like it's not can't get my words out, but it's not surprising that the world is the way that it is when we recognize that 85% of humanity are out of integrity. Again, not by choice, but ultimately out of ignorance, perhaps. And so when we're on this spiritual path, it can also be a path where you can get led down alleys you might not want to go. You know, you can be deceived by false gurus, or maybe you end up in a cult or something. Do you know what I mean? And so like this gives you this tool to discern what's right for you, what's empowering, what's in alignment with the truth ultimately, and what is out of integrity and probably best not to delve into too far, type of thing. So yeah.
Very good. Is it does he use the sway method or the
Yeah.
finger look the sway?
He basically teaches the arm method, but I use the sway method on myself. And there's videos, they're quite old now, but there's videos on YouTube of him teaching children how to do it
Oh, very good.
and stuff. So, and you know, like the innocence of a child and everything. So he gets this child on one of his YouTube videos and he gives her different things to hold, and then he tests her arm, and then she holds tobacco, and he actually gives her a bowl of tobacco and she goes strong, but it's because it's in its raw form, and it's like before anything's been
Yes.
done to it, it's not inherently bad. So you know,
No, and they're now finding that it actually cures some things.
yeah,
If
because it
they
comes from
could
nature. So yeah.
if they could change the addictive nature of it and the fact that it's a brilliant weed killer as well, if they could
Right.
change that part of it, then
Yeah.
the healing properties of it. So I think that's what they're working on now, is how they get the healing properties out of, because I think so far every time they try to get their healing properties out of it, they're destroying the whole thing, which is
Right.
unfortunate. But anyhow, um, brilliant. Power versus force. Very
Yeah.
good. So your favorite phrase,
I think for me, it's like I am that. So
Dr. Wayne
whatever
Dry?
it is that I want to be, I am. And however it is that I want to feel, I am. So like when I first met my partner, I was working with I am love. And then I met the love of my life. And so it's like, you know, you're embodying the frequency, and you ultimately are already that anyway. So it's a statement of truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of my coaches, Melanie Ann Layer, always says that there's no stronger frequency on earth than the frequency of truth. And so, you know, when we say I am that, you're actually telling the truth, because at a soul level, you are already the love, the abundance, the healed, healthy, whole, you know, nothing missing,
Very,
nothing broken.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And that would be, so you know, I love it when people come into my life and they echo back to me what I say, because I say to people all the time, you are not broken.
Yeah.
You're not broken.
Mm.
Um, and what would you tell your younger self?
You can do it. You can do it. You just gotta go through the whole process and not stop before the process is finished, whatever it's
Brilliant.
about. Yeah.
Brilliant. Carolyn, thank you so much for your time today. I really
Lovely.
appreciate it. It was great crack talking to you. Um, and I will keep following you on Facebook, because obviously Divine Feminine and Raise Your Gaze and those
Oh
views.
yeah.
Keep posting
There's
those
more
views.
coming. Yeah, lots more coming.
Good luck with it all. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to the wedding photographs as well.
Oh yeah.
Um, Take good care, and I hope you continue to have huge success with all the lives that you're impacting.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Namaste. Wrong, that's it, Ian. But anyway, thank you.